welcome everybody. I will not make any big speeches at the beginning. I'll get us going. I said a couple of these comments to the candidates before we started, but I'll just repeat them here. My role here is tour guide through this event. It is to indicate and sort of lead you through the process when it's your turn to speak, recognize you when it's your turn. It's not a debate. You know, for those in the audience, these are not structured as debates. They're not. They're forums. The candidates don't speak to each other directly. They speak to the audience through the moderator, with the moderator calling on the candidate. So they're not structured as back and forth debates. They're also structured so everybody has equal time to speak throughout the evening. So we follow a format where everyone gets a certain amount of time at the end of the program. If you choose to use all of your time, every candidate will have had an equal amount of airtime. So we did draw first. Jennifer Boylan drew the first number 1. So you will have the opportunity for your first opening statement of 1 minute, and you may begin.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
How many wild cards are they getting in this form?
They have 6 wild cards to use, and for the audience, the wild cards are 30-second blocks of time that they can use throughout this program to lengthen an answer, to lengthen a statement, or to jump in and respond to something that that their opponent has said. And I try not to interrupt you, so if you're in the flow of making a point, you don't want to sort of stop and wave your arms to extend your time, just keep talking and we'll do the recording behind the scenes. So the point is for you to get your thoughts out as cleanly as possible. So you may use those wild cards at any point during the evening. And yes, there are 6 total. All right? Take us away.
Thank you. Thank you to East Bay Media and to the League of Women Voters, and to all of you for being here tonight. My name is Jennifer Boylan, and I am a Democrat, and I'm running for re-election to represent House District 66 in the Rhode Island General Assembly. And that includes Riverside and Barrington. I have a strong understanding of our community and experience with collaboration and making change. Prior to being elected, I was an advocate for common sense gun laws for a decade. And I also advocated to codify Roe versus Wade here in Rhode Island. I took those skills that I learned as an advocate and put them to work when I became a lawmaker 2 years ago. I have a track record of working hard for my community. I have championed and passed legislation to expand voter access, to reform school safety drills, to protect the environment, and combat climate change. I want to continue in my role as a state rep so I can press ahead on issues critical to Rhode Island's future: climate change, cleaner, healthier renewable energy sources, microplastics, assault weapons, reproductive rights, and small businesses.
Thank you. We're going to have to pass the mic until we get the second one fixed. So our second candidate is Janine Wolf, and you may begin your opening statement.
My name is Janine Wolf. I'm a lifetime Rhode Islander and a 25-year Barrington resident. I raised my 3 daughters in town, some of that as a single parent. I have an extensive professional background in computer information systems and software. I've spent the last 2 years advocating against particularly onerous policies in Barrington and decided that the root cause of the issues plaguing local communities is rooted at the state level. So I intend to bring my fight there. I am not afraid to call out bad policy when I see it, not afraid of swimming upstream. Unlike my opponent, I am not obligated to adhere to any national party positions. I am not in this race to advocate for anything but this district's citizens. My opinions are formed from living as a Rhode Islander, understanding Rhode Island's culture and people. They are not open to the persuasions of special interest groups or party bosses. My goal in the General Assembly is to free working Rhode Islanders from the crippling yoke of the overgrown Rhode Island government, which funnels billions of their tax dollars through a panoply of social service providing NGOs, delivering free of charge all manner of health and human service benefits to non-American newcomers who would have been trafficked here by still more taxpayer-funded NGOs. Lack of oversight has created these profligate giveaways at the cost of Rhode Island's struggle for working citizens. It is time to wind it back.
Okay, so that was one wild card, just for the record. You went over your minute. Do we have a pen that works? Is that pen working?
Yes.
Okay.
We're waiting,
Okay, there you go. Excellent. All right, we're going to move on to questions. Ms. Boylan, we're going to start with you for the first question. And you'll each have a minute on this same question, and then if you wanted to respond on this same topic, you are welcome to, just let me know. Okay, here we go. If elected to serve in the General Assembly for the next term, what is the one bill you will work hardest to pass in the next session? Nope. Jennifer Boylan.
Okay. So the bill that I'll work hardest to pass is a bill that I passed last session, but that failed to move on to the General Assembly in the Senate. And this is a crime-solving bill. I worked with folks from the Crime Lab, the Rhode Island Crime Lab, on this bill, as well as some experts from around the country on a bill that would require law enforcement to use a system called NIBIN, which is a National Integrated Ballistics Imaging Network, which allows fingerprinting of bullets. This is a really important crime-solving technique for crime guns and guns suspected of crimes. I passed this bill. I worked so hard on it. I introduced it my first year, didn't pass. My second year, it did pass in the House, and I feel like it's been left on the table, and it's a really important bill. I have a fantastic Senate partner on it, and I'm looking forward to actually finishing the job next session.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wolf, same question.
In the last few election cycles, what Democrats call voting access has undergone what can only be described as an embarrassment of a successful expansion. In the state of Rhode Island, every guardrail to election integrity has been declared to be an impediment to voting access and removed. This, even while other states take lessons from 2020 and attempt to tighten their integrity reinforcing processes. I testified in 2022 against almost every change that was being proposed in the Let Rhode Island Vote Act because because I had put in the time in and understood Rhode Island election laws, procedures, infrastructure, and systems. What I found was serious and ill-enforced ballot custody procedures and opaque and dubiously secure networks of unauditable and barely documented systems. When I get to the General Assembly, the first thing I'm going to do is address election integrity issues.
Thank you. All right, next question. Actually, keep the microphone. Next question starts with you. We'll switch the order. In recent years, the Rhode Island General Assembly has passed a number of laws relating to firearms regulations, including banning ghost guns and high-capacity magazines, disarming domestic abusers, prohibiting straw purchases, and prohibiting guns on school property. Do you support these new laws? Do you believe there should be additional gun regulations in Rhode Island?
I support some of those laws. It's quite a long list. But beefed up efforts by law enforcement towards curtailing gun violence and keeping criminals off the streets once they are apprehended are essential to reducing the level of criminal gun violence in our communities. Targeting the source of illegal street guns is also crucial to the safety of our neighborhoods. These solutions seem obvious, but somehow are never given the resources needed to get ahead of the problem. This year, as in every other election year, we find that despite there being exactly 0 communities whose health and safety are being adversely impacted by law-abiding gun owners, we find the rights of law-abiding gun owners in the crosshairs, as if removing their rights would somehow curb the illegal street behavior that is completely unrelated to them. All mass murder are symptoms of mental health crises gone untreated. This nation has epidemic levels of mental health illness and suicide. Trying to restrict the gun rights of law-abiding citizens has been tried and tried again. The United States Supreme Court has ruled that states trying to limit citizens' Second Amendment rights are acting unconstitutionally.
Thank you. And pass the mic, please. This is all about getting batteries. We need to get batteries for this microphone. If anyone has batteries in their purse or back pocket, you're welcome to.
We've gone for some.
Okay. We're working on it. All right. Ms. Boylan, same question.
Okay, thank you. You know, I had a front row seat to the passage of all those bills that were listed. I've been going to the State House ever since the Sandy Hook school shooting. It's really what propelled me to get involved in lawmaking and to pay such close attention to our state's gun laws as well as our nation's gun laws. We have over 40,000 deaths from guns every year. It's shameful. It doesn't have to be that way. We know that strong gun laws work, and I'm very proud of the work we've done in the General Assembly. You know, the work that I did as an advocate to pass all those bills into law. And I was very proud to vote for the secure storage bill that we passed this year. You know, other countries, people in other countries suffer from mental health crises, but they don't have the problem with gun violence that we have here in our country. My priority, if re-elected, will be to support and pass the assault weapons ban. It's past time. It's been in committee for going on 12 years.
Thank you. Yeah, please do. You're welcome to jump back in.
I just wanted to say, Ms. Boylan is in Rhode Island's General Assembly as a representative of the Democrat Party's national initiatives. Foremost of these is incremental chipping away at the constitutionally protected, unimpingible right of American citizens to arm themselves in any way that they see fit. She will relentlessly chip away at that issue until the United States, like Australia, sees the confiscation of all guns from its citizens. For Ms. Boylan and her fellow activists, only the government should have guns, and that is a recipe for every governmental abuse that led to the American Revolution.
Hey, please, you're welcome to jump back in.
I'm not coming for everyone's guns, but I do firmly believe that with rights comes responsibility. As we regulate certain types of firearms in our country, you don't get to walk around with a fully automatic rifle. They're extremely hard to get, and I would not be taking everyone's guns. That's not my end game. My end game is to reduce gun violence.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to a new topic. Oh, thank you. All right, thank you to the IT team. All right, next question, Ms. Boylan, we're going to start back with you. Turning to the state budget, do you agree with how Rhode Island is spending nearly $14 billion annually? Does the state have the right priorities in focus, or would you work to shift how and where the state's resources are allocated?
You know, I'm really proud of the budget we passed this year. I thought it struck a really good balance. I was very pleased with some of the changes that were made towards the very end of the session. We came through for the schools. We did things like making the green bond greener. We did a lot of things towards the end of the session. We worked really hard to get a good budget, and I'm proud of the direction we're going in. I think my biggest concerns with my biggest concerns with things I'd like to see different are not necessarily budgetary. My biggest concern right now is climate change, and working on that issue is my #1 priority.
Thank you. Ms. Wolf, same question. Sure. Do you agree with how Rhode Island is spending nearly $14 billion per year? Does the state have the right priorities in focus, or would you work to shift how and where the state's resources are allocated?
The amount of money taken from each citizen's rightful earnings has never ceased increasing in Rhode Island. Think about that. With genius levels of creativity, new claims of obligation are laid on us by the legislature, by the legislative and administrative. I heard it said that housing takes the first bite out of everyone's paycheck, but that's false. Before any wage order receives a penny of their compensation, the government reaches directly in and takes an ever-increasing portion. If you compare the size of the government to 10 years ago, you might be fooled into believing that the government has not grown. That is its published payroll. has been relatively static. But the payroll ignores the gigantic gaping funnels through which your tax dollars are passed in order to fund billions that are sent to a legion of NGOs established to disperse our tax dollars without oversight. The NGOs then house, educate, vocationally train, feed, provide healthcare, transportation, and job placement, and education, and to a steady stream of aspiring Americans called residents of all ages, all brought to the state to fill the roles of the corporations want them to. They have heartwarming names that sound altruistic and kind, but they are tools for citizen theft. I think that the state of Rhode Island needs to get out of the business of trafficking, housing, and social service providing for people who are not the tax-paying base of the state. It's a delusion for us to think that the budget has stayed the same in the state. It has grown astronomically.
Thank you. Yes, please, Ms. Boylan.
So I just have a really different view of things. You know, I believe in a strong social safety net, that people need a hand. We haven't really raised taxes of late. We have critical services that need to be paid for.
Okay, thank you. New topic, Ms. Wolf, we begin with you. Should the General Assembly be doing more to address the critical shortage of primary care, mental health, and medical providers in the state? If so, what should be done?
I think the reason that we have such a shortage of primary care providers is compensation. And I think that the compensation is allowed to be determined by the insurance companies. My daughter's pediatrician 20 years ago complained that they couldn't get compensated enough, and that he wouldn't even recommend his son go to medical school. And that's something that we have the power in this state to control what kind of powers the insurance companies have. And insurance companies are another example of the corporations for whom the legislative body in this state does their bidding. And the people are not being served by that policy. The doctors are not being served by allowing the insurance companies to rule the roost.
Ms. Boylan, same question.
So healthcare is a human right, and many factors combine over a long period of time to get us to where we are today with our primary care shortage. So it's going to take many factors, many different solutions in tandem to get us out of this problem. One thing we do know is that when people are educated in a state, they tend to stay there. We know that Brown University is not training physicians to practice primary care and stay here in Rhode Island. Therefore, we have a study commission going on that's just starting now to explore the idea of a URI medical school. And we need to give the study commission time to do their work and figure out what their recommendations are going to be. We have been doing many things to address healthcare. And one of the things we did this past year was budget for increasing Medicaid reimbursement rates.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to a new question, beginning with Ms. Boylan. How can the General Assembly help the state be ready for climate change?
So again, this is one of my top priority areas. We know that we need to be prepared for extreme weather, flooding, erosion, coastal erosion, and that climate change at its root cause is caused by burning fossil fuels. I have introduced a number of specific bills to combat climate change, and I've also supported my colleagues in the House with other really good bills that I think will help to address climate change. In my first year in office, I introduced the Solar Neighborhoods Act, which is a bill modeled after California law that would mandate solar panels on all new construction. I also support Rebecca Kislak, Rep. Kislak's bill, Building Decarbonization Act, which is a bill that did not pass this session yet, still being worked on, but hopefully it will be passed next year. I have a bill called a Lead by Example bill that would mandate that the state government do all the things that we'd like the private sector to do to address their buildings' carbon emissions with solar and infrastructure, to eliminate single-use plastics in its own buildings, on its own property, to do all the things we ask of others: compost, recycle, be efficient with their energy. I also have a bill that would fund climate education in schools. I was a strong supporter of funding RIPTA, and I would like to see us implement the Transit Master Plan and the bicycle mobility plans. And I'd like to see us, in general, at the General Assembly, acting with more urgency on all of these areas. Every year, a bunch of lawmakers that are interested in this issue introduce a whole host of bills. It's going to take passing of many of the bills to get us to meet our Act on Climate goals, and I hope that we can act with more urgency along these lines.
Thank you. Ms. Wolf, the same question.
Being a coastal state has always meant that we needed to be ready to shore up this corner of our coastal infrastructure or that. Storms come and go, beaches shift. Runoff has been considered and perpetually monitored in the name of ecological good stewardship. We as a state have always monitored these things, and we have come up with the appropriate resources as needed. The benefit of living close to the waterfront is widely appreciated as part of the extra efforts that it demands. All is well. Then came the climate alarmists and their promises of ruin. Every storm was a gotcha. Every shift in the beachscape a sign of impending calamity. It all proved their theory, they claimed, except that we've been dealing with these things in the same proportion for the past half-century. The climate may even be considered better now if we consider the 1938 New England hurricane and the immense flood that buried Providence in 13 feet of water. We've been 85 years without such a calamity. I wish that we could please stop scaring the children about this issue. It is needless fear that stresses them in an already stressful phase of life. We all have access to empirical data that showing that climate is not actually changing any more dramatically than it always has. Take, for example, the polar bear population, which is higher than any time since we started counting polar bears. This will likely sound wrong to this group, but I beg you to do your own research. There is no empirical study showing that fossil fuel usage is causing the climate to change. There is none. Why would the powers that be perpetrate such a lie? Because it's how they destroy your claim to freedom. Freedom to choose your own path, spend your money as you wish, and defend your rights. You will feel too guilty for the damage that they tell you have done and you are continuing to do to the earth. You will pay them carbon taxes to fix it on your behalf, taxes that you don't owe towards damages you haven't done, to people who have no intention to fix anything, but only to sell you expensive products and collect your guilt money. What will be the next boondoggle for these profiteering schemers? Maybe next you will be told that you have too many grandchildren and must pay a fine for your share of overpopulation. It seems entirely in line with the language coming out of the very source of the climate messaging.
Okay, thank you. We have one last question, just to update the scorecard. Ms. Wolf, you have used all of your wild cards. Ms. Boylan, you have 2 remaining. And this question will begin with Ms. Wolf. Do you approve of the job done by Governor Dan McKee and DOT Director Peter Alviti regarding the Washington Bridge failure?
There's no issue that brings home the point that I'm trying to convey here today than the Washington Bridge situation. It is my biggest in-kind campaign contributor. We cannot go on like this as a state, as adults with responsibility for the future. Business as usual, politics as usual is unthinkable. 9.5 months in, the demolition appears to be at about 7 to 8%. Work is stopped. One of the at-fault fraudulent contractors was hired for the job, which was halted because they have to preserve evidence. It's right out of a stand-up routine. News today was that the state was looking to add the job to the already in process 13 bridge contract with Skanska. That contract itself was awarded without competitive bidding. What kind of deal do you think we got on that? Are we thinking we'll get a good deal by adding this new bridge to the project? How long will they, until they get around to this bridge number 15 on their project list? The notion of any voter choosing to keep this same party, the same power structure in power that is currently running the ship aground is something I cannot comprehend.
Thank you. Ms. Boylan, same question.
So all of us are feeling the pain of driving across this bridge. Just like all of you, I'm stuck in traffic. I've had to plan accordingly, adjust my schedule to account for, additional travel time, maybe not. I am also outraged by it. People's lives were disrupted, small businesses are suffering, and it's unacceptable. I do see it as a failure of the administration, and I think we all deserve answers. We deserve to know what steps are being taken to ensure that it will never happen again. We have, in the General Assembly, have done several things in the wake of this bridge closure. We've had an oversight hearing, and I'm very hopeful that in January or February we'll be doing another one, if not more. Immediately after the bridge was closed, the East Bay lawmakers in the General Assembly asked for, demanded, quite frankly, that we would have weekly briefings with Director LWV. In fact, we met with him today. We now meet with him regularly. It may be every 3 weeks, something like that. We meet with him to express our questions, our concerns, to hold him accountable, to pass on our suggestions, both our own suggestions as well as suggestions we receive from constituents, because sometimes people come to us with really good ideas and we serve as a conduit to pass them up the chain. In addition, we passed a bill in the General Assembly that mandates that the Department of Transportation provide us with monthly snapshot reports. This was because we felt like we weren't getting the data that we needed to see what was really going on with travel times, accidents, etc. And those monthly snapshot reports are available for all of us. Everyone can look at them. Just go to washington-bridge.com and you can look them up. They're updated every month. And last, we've also advocated for loans for small businesses. Grants for small businesses. Initially, loans were what was being offered, and small business owners don't need loans, they need grants. And that program is open right now for small businesses.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving to our closing statements. I told you this would be over before you even knew. Ms. Wolf, you have a 1-minute closing statement.
Things need to change in this state. Nothing is going to change by reinstalling another ruling party mouthpiece, passing off social engineering agenda items as the most important issues to the population of constituents who can't possibly make ends meet anymore. The corruption passing itself off as ineptitude is breaking the back of Rhode Island citizens. Look at the conversations around the bridge, the closed bridge. People are beyond disgusted. They were disgusted 20 years ago. It never changes. The endless servicing of corporate interests over those of citizens must end. We need to work together to end it. But I will stand in the fray and speak for the working citizens of this state. We need to believe that we can turn things around, that the endlessly creative ways of assuming more and more of the money we earn while ignoring our needs can be stopped and reversed. But we cannot have hope without cleaning out the party players, those invested in keeping things in the state working exactly the way they are now, while breathlessly fear-mongering about issues that are not primary and fundamental to your getting through your day, paying your rent or mortgage, and keeping yourself healthy.
Thank you. Ms. Boylan, also 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I seek re-election because I'm an experienced, proven leader who can effectively represent the needs and values of the people of Riverside and Barrington. As a first-term lawmaker, I was appointed by the Speaker of the House to chair a study commission on school safety drills. This commission included all stakeholders from public safety and education. The work resulted in a law to change how Rhode Island K-12 students and their teachers prepare for emergencies in a more trauma-informed and age-appropriate manner. And I'm just getting started. In my first term in office, I've championed and helped pass a wide range of bills into law, from a bill that gives 17-year-olds the right to vote in a primary election as long as they are 18 by the general, to modernizing our alcoholism statutes, to environmental protections, to economic development and business tax reduction. In 2025, I hope to continue to serve constituents who need help navigating our government systems and serve the greater good by improving our laws and our state government. To the voters of Riverside and Barrington, I ask for your votes. Please send me back to the Rhode Island General Assembly in November. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both.